God bless today's scripture reading. Today we're continuing on our countdown of Ledbetter's top 10. We're at number 6, Ruth and Naomi. These are stories that you picked for me to preach on. Ruth is we find the story in the book of Ruth, which is one of 2 books named after women. You know what the other book is? Esther. That's right. I knew you did. I figured I'd start off with an easy question. Esther. Yeah. Esther. So today we find the story of Ruth and Naomi, which is 4 chapters long. The whole book is 4 chapters long. Not a real long story, but a very relevant story. And in today's story, you don't find any kings or queens. We don't find any conquerors. We don't find anybody killing a giant with a stone. We don't find anybody with extraordinary strength and long hair. We don't find any of these super natural stories that sometimes you read in the Old Testament. These great things. We find ordinary folks. Just ordinary people. As a matter of fact, any of us could probably slide into this story and it would fit right in. It's just very regular folks. There's nothing wrong with being regular folk, is it? Of course not. So we all can fit in to this story. And it's a story that deals with fidelity and loyalty and faithfulness. It's a story about commitment. It reaches beyond the ordinary. And it's the verse that I just read. Many of you have heard that verse before. Some of you may have heard it at weddings. Have you ever heard that read at a wedding? It's a verse of commitment, right? Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. But strangely in this, it's not spoken between a man to a husband to a wife, or a wife to a husband. No, indeed, it's spoken in a relationship that normally is the brunt of many jokes, right? The in-law, right? The mother-in-law, right? I mean, have you ever heard a mother-in-law joke? Huh? Have you? Have you ever thought of a mother-in-law joke? And, I heard one where a guy said, my mother-in-law is an angel. The guy says, man, you sure are lucky. He said, mine's still alive. Mother-in-laws and are not always dangerous territory. Now, I want to go ahead and say something right now because this is being filmed. And sometimes my mother-in-law watches this. I have no problem with my mother-in-law. Now, I can tell you, I love my mother-in-law, and she has blessed me through Pam tremendously. So I personally don't have any problems with mother-in-law, but I've heard stories of other folks who've had difficulties with their mother-in-law. That's what I'm speaking from, and I've read stories. I just want to make that clear. And in-laws in general, you have to adopt another family. That's kind of a tricky situation. They're your family now, but they're not your family, right? You didn't grow up with them in the same house. You didn't experience things with them. So you take some getting used to, right? So in-laws, but of all the in-laws that you have brothers-in-law, sisters-in-law, we have fathers-in-law. The mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law seem to be the ones that have the biggest. That's what I'm looking for. Issues. They seem to be the ones that sometimes have the biggest issues, and it doesn't seem to be a level playing field there for some reason. I remember a story of a woman who had a son and a daughter, and they got married within like 3 months of each other. And this lady asked her, he said, how are your children doing? She said, how's your son doing? Or how's your daughter doing? She said, how's your daughter doing? And how's her marriage? Well, she was great. She said, she married a wonderful man. She said, he makes her sleep late every day. He tells her, don't worry about it. You just sleep in. He said, he makes her an appointment at the beauty shop 3 times a week. He said, he won't let her cook a thing. Tells her not to worry about the meals. He takes her out to eat every night. She said, wow, your daughter is really blessed. Said, oh, she is blessed. What a wonderful man. She said, well, how about your son? How's his marriage going? She said, well, not so good. Said, the girl he married, all she wants to do is sleep late every day. Hang out at the beauty parlor all week. She won't fix dinner, and she's always making him take her out to eat. Sound familiar? Same side of the coin, but it kind of looks like it's slanted one way, doesn't it? That's kind of the way it is sometimes with in-laws. But we're not here to talk about how bad our relationship is with in-laws, because they're really, really not. We do love them. So, but that relationship with the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law always seems to be the one under scrutiny, which gives this story kind of a special twist, doesn't it? Kind of makes what's said there even more special in the time. And you have to know the whole story. We're going to get into the whole story as I'm going to tell you the story, but to give you a summary of it, so we don't have to read 4 chapters, because you know how I read, and it's not well, and it bores you. And so it's more exciting probably if I tell you the story. So we're going to go over the story real quick. I'm going to let you know, but as you hear the story, know this, there's 2 stories here. There's the little story of Naomi and Ruth, but there's a bigger story as well. And we're going to get into the bigger story after we get into the little story. Okay? Now, Naomi, we start off with Naomi and her husband leaving their homeland. They're Jewish people. And Naomi and her husband and her 2 sons have to move from their homeland to Moab, which is a foreign country. Because there's what? A famine. There's a famine, which isn't uncommon in that time. People would move due to famine to go places where they can what? Be fed, because everybody likes to eat. Sure, I do too. And it's where you go where the donuts are, right? That's basically what you're doing. So they migrate, they go to Moab. And so they're uprooted from their country where they're very comfortable. And they go to this strange land. And while they're there, the boys do grow up. And they meet 2 girls. And they get married. Now, that couldn't have sat well with Naomi. I'm sure she would like her Jewish boys to be marrying Jewish women. However, when in Rome, do as the Romans. That's what was available, so they married. One of the girls' names was Ruth. The other one was Orpah. Now, the 2 girls get married. They live there together as a family, and then tragedy strikes, we're told. Right? Naomi's husband dies, and then the boys die. And there they are in a strange country. Naomi's in a strange country with no means of support. You see, because the men, it wasn't like today where women work here. I mean, the women stayed home. They were dependent on the man for any source of income. Okay? So basically, here she is in a foreign country with no source of income. Not from her boys, not from her husband. She has nothing. And so she decides that she's going to go back home. Go back to Bethlehem. And the girls say, well, we'll go with you. You know, we'll go with you, the thing. And as they're getting started, she says, you know, really you're better served to stay here. You need to stay with your families. I have nothing to offer you. I have no money. I have no nothing. I have no way of supporting you or me. I have nothing to offer you. I'm too old to even have sons to where you could marry one of my sons. Because by the time they grew up, it's 20 years. It's just too much. You need to stay here. I have nothing. There's no future with me. You need to stay. Now, one of the girls, Orpah, said, good idea. I'm staying. I'll stay. And so they hugged and kissed and wept, and she said goodbye. But Ruth, on the other hand, said, don't ask me to leave you. I can't leave you. She said, wherever you go, I'll go. Wherever you stay, I'll stay. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. When you die, I die. In other words, I'm all in. I'm going to be here for you from here to eternity. Nothing can separate you from me. That's all Ruth did. That's what she's famous for. That right there. Except, what? She actually followed through on it, right? You ever had somebody tell you that I'll be there for you, only not to be? Have you? I got your back till things get rough, right? I'll be there for you until the water gets a little choppy, then I'm out, right? You ever known people like that? Made those promises? Ruth actually did it. She was committed. She gave us an example of what it means to be loyal, what it means to be committed, to what fidelity should look like. It should be all in, no matter what. I'm with you. You sink, I sink. You swim, I swim. Kind of like a shadow, right? Wherever you go, your shadow goes, right? You ever notice that? I saw a video this week of a girl on YouTube, and she was crying because that shadow was following her. Everywhere she went, she couldn't get rid of that shadow. It was chasing her. That's what Ruth's telling Naomi. I want to be with you like that shadow. I'm here till the end. Till the sun goes down on you, I'm going to be here with you. Now, I want you to think for a minute. Of all the people on this planet, how many of them are acquaintances of yours? Now, think about how many of them are your, not just acquaintances, but they're your friends. Not Facebook friends, those don't count. but really your friends. Now, of those people you call friends, we go out and we play cards. How many of those people do you really think that if you called at 3 a.m. and needed something, would be there for you? You see, because that's what loyalty is all about. It's being there at 3 a.m. when someone calls. It's about being there anytime they call. Day or night or day. Good times, bad times, you don't separate them out. That's what loyalty is all about. Fidelity, commitment. Those are words we throw around, but do they mean anything to us anymore? Are we just loyal while it's convenient? When it's easy. I can remember, I'm getting all kinds of trouble today. I can remember when I was in the military, and I was at AIT, it's Advanced Individual Training, for those of you who don't know the military. That comes after boot camp, okay? And we were standing in formation, company formation. There's hundreds of soldiers. We're standing there in by platoon. And Andy Frazier, a friend of mine, standing row back, in the middle of the row, and Andy was a cut-up. And maybe that's why we were friends. And and Andy decided that he was going to go, hooty-hoo, hooty-hoo. And while the commander was giving his speech, Andy's sitting there going, hooty-hoo, hooty-hoo. Well, one of the sergeants heard him. So they made our platoon stay after the company was dismissed. And he asked, he said, now who was doing the hooty-hoo? Who was making that noise? And he went up to Andy. Andy said, I don't know, Sergeant. And he went to the next guy, and the guy said, I don't know, Sergeant. And he went to the next guy, I don't know, Sergeant. He came to me, I said, I don't know, Sergeant. And he said, okay, now I'm going to ask you again. He said, but this time, if your answer is no, you're going to get a 7-day no pass. In other words, you're not going to be able to leave the base for a week. He said, now, who was doing it? I don't know. 7-day no pass. Who was doing it? I don't know. And on down the line, to every male, he went to that place. And the response was the same. I don't know, sir. 7-day no pass. Now, we had a mixed platoon, male and female. The very first female he went to was standing right in front of Andy. He said, who was making that noise? Him right there. Without hesitation, without a missing a heartbeat, just turned, boom, right there. That's the one. And he said, okay. He said, so then he went back to Andy. He said, now, Andy, you were going to let all these people take a no pass for you to do it. He said, were you the one saying who to you? And he said, and Andy started to answer. And somebody else said, no, it was me. And another guy said, no, it was me. And another guy said, no, it was me. And another guy, he said, stop. He said, that's enough. He said, if you think you were doing it, and you fall out right back there, and you get your 7-day no pass. He said, if you weren't doing it, go in the building. Now, all the guys fell out to the back. And all the girls went in the building. That's not a reflection on whether male or female is more loyal. It's just, it was a picture of that particular time, and it's what really truly happened. So I want to say that because I don't want you ladies coming to me saying, women are loyal, you need to take that back. It was just the only story I had. Okay? I know you're loyal. I trust me. It's not about that. So I don't want anybody to mistake that. But it was a true story. It's what really happened on that day. And as the sergeant came back there and started fussing at us about making noise, about everybody saying that they're the ones who did it, somebody pointed out and said, isn't that what you're trying to teach us? To stick together, to be committed, to be loyal, to act as one. He said, get out of here. Nobody got a no pass, so it ended up very well. But it was a story of commitment, right? That's kind of what commitment looks like. In other words, if 7-day no pass, okay, I'll take that. Whatever it costs me, I'm going to take that for you, right? That's the commitment. You know anybody else who was committed like that? Jesus Christ was committed like that. He said, no matter what it costs, I'm going to pay for you, even if it costs me my life, right? Even if I have to hang on the cross. Even if they whip me or put crown of thorns on my head, I'm going to pay the price for each of you. He was committed to you that way. Wasn't he? No matter what the cost. He's all in. Are you all in? Can you say that about your faith? Can you say that about your walk? I'm all in. Well, I'm all in except for. I'm there for you except for between midnight and 4. I don't usually answer the phone. Can we say that? I mean, where's our level of commitment, right? In our everyday walk with the people we interact with. Because it's not just about husbands and wives, or mothers-in-laws and our daughters-in-laws. It's about the way we interact with each other, right? With your spouses, with your family, with your children, with your friends, with people you don't know. We're all in this together. You do know that, right? It's not just about we're in it with our family. We're all in this together. This place we call earth, this walk of life, we're all in this together. Where's our commitment? Where's our commitment to our faith, right? And you know, all this story has this great line in there, this great little passage that I just read a minute ago, where you go, I'll go. I mean, it'd be a great movie, wouldn't it? And if you watch Hallmark movies, this could be a Hallmark movie, this whole story. It has all the makings. I mean, we have some tragedy, people getting uprooted from their homes because they can't find food and having to go to a different land. And there they meet, fall in love, and live happily ever after for a few years, and then they die, and then the women don't have it. I mean, it's all up and down tragedy. And then you got this devotion, this where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. Your people will be my people. I mean, it's an excellent time for a phone call. Life happens. Life happens. But in all seriousness, it could be a movie, couldn't it? Wouldn't it make a good movie? I don't know who's going to play the phone call in the movie. It would be a good movie. It would be a good movie. It's all right. It's all right. Life happens. But But it would be an excellent movie. But the movie doesn't end here. The movie keeps going, right? They don't just stay in the desert. They go back to Bethlehem. But they still have no money, right? And so we find that Ruth is out gleaning the fields. Now, do you know what gleaning is? Clean it up. Is going in there and basically after the people have come and commercially harvested the land, the wheat, they come in and pick up whatever's left, right? Whatever they get. And sometimes it tells us in the Bible that they would leave a corner of the field for the widows and people who did for the poor. They could go in there and glean off that and get. So she's out there gleaning, which is basically almost like a beggar, right? I guess that would be a good way of, you're kind of, or welfare. Maybe welfare would be a way it's somebody else has done the work and you're getting provided for. But she's out there doing that. And they come up, she brings back the, Boaz asks who she is. There's a new character, Boaz, I'm sorry. Boaz was a relative of Naomi's first husband. Okay, so that's the field that she was in. And that she comes and he sees her and he says, basically tells the people that work for him, drop some pies, leave some extra for her, make sure she's taken care of. Now he doesn't know who she is, but somehow she caught his eye. Now Ruth goes back to Naomi and shows her what she's been able to gather that day. She says, well, where did you go? And she said, well, I work Boaz, for a gentleman named Boaz, who was a wealthy man. She goes, he's a relative of ours. You need to go and let it be known to him that you are who you are. And tell him that you want him to take you under his wing. And you want to be what? Married to him. Because that's the way it worked back then. It was a code of sorts that if your brother died, then you would take care of his family. A lot of times they would marry up into the different families, but they would take the wives into their family to take care of them or marry into that family to make sure that their line was carried on. So she goes to him and she proposes. She says, I am Naomi's husband's daughter-in-law, and we have nobody. She tells him what's going on, and he realizes that he has a responsibility. Now he has a choice. He doesn't have to take that responsibility on, which is the way life is, right? We oftentimes choose to or not to take on our responsibilities, but he has a responsibility to them to take it on. But he says, what? Yes, I'm in. Let's do it. But he realizes, while this would be a happy place to end the story, right? With them getting married and woo, we're off. Doesn't quite end that way. Because see, there's another relative who is closer in line than him as far as like an inheritance type thing or responsibility, who will be responsible. So Boaz, being the man that he is, has to have this guy pass before he can marry Ruth. It's just getting complicated. I know it is. But there's work with me for a minute. It's almost over. And so he brings him in and says, do you want to Naomi's come back. Do you want to basically take on this responsibility of Naomi and Ruth? And there's some land involved, evidently, that Naomi has. That I guess she had from when they lived there. And he goes, sure, yeah, I'll take it on. I got it, I'm good. That's good for me. And he goes, now you do realize that if you take it on, that it's going to be your responsibility to produce basically a child with Ruth to carry on that branch of the family. And you're going to be responsible for taking care of that child. Well, maybe I'll pass. I'm sure I'll pass. And so he passes, which frees Boaz to marry Ruth, which he does. And they have a child, and that's the end of the Ruth and Naomi story. So they're married into this wealthy family. Now, they had a child named Obed, O-B-E-D. Now, this is where the story gets big. Okay, you've heard the small story of Ruth and Naomi. This is where it gets big. Obed had a son named Jesse. And Jesse had a son named David. That would be King David in the Bible. So, we know the genealogy there, that King David was actually the great-grandson of Ruth, a Moabite woman. Did you know that? Which also leads us to know that, because from the line of David comes who? Christ. So as I read this week, it's funny how that's tacked on to the end, because without that, it's just a story of like two ordinary people, or actually several ordinary people, that come together and go through this life story of hills and valleys, right? High times, good times, bad times, and nothing really significant about it, except it is the line of David. Which makes me wonder, not really wonder, because I know, God was at work all the time. Through the things that look bad and through the things that look good, the sad times and the bad times, God was moving Naomi into Ruth's path, and then Ruth and Naomi back into Bethlehem, into Boaz's path, so that he could not only take care of Naomi and Ruth in the end, but he kind of takes care of the rest of the world in the end, doesn't he? Because through David, Israel experienced a time of prosperity, a time of strength. But through Jesus Christ, the world experiences what? Salvation. So he was not only working on Naomi's behalf and Israel's behalf, he was working on our behalf as well, wasn't he? And was there bad times in there? Do you think having to leave your homeland because you can't find food to eat is a good time? Anybody on anybody's party list, top 10 things to do this week or this month? No. That's not a good time. That's not something we hope for. Having your husband die? Not what we're looking for. Having your children die? Not what we're looking for. Not a good time. Having to come back and basically beg? Not where I want to be in life. Marrying into a wealthy family? Well, that's not a bad idea. I may take that, right? But my point is that there were bad times for these ordinary people. But there were also good days. There was also good that came out of this. And it's kind of like our lives. We're ordinary people. We go through life. And each step we take, some is good, some is bad. There's going to be bad days, and there's going to be good days. But you need to know that God is working in the bad days as well as in the good days. That he's moving you to a place that he wants you to be. That the best is yet to come. That today might be bad, but tomorrow could be better. Will be better. That he's moving you to an eternity with him at some point that will definitely be better than anything you've experienced here on earth. You know, I'm reminded of the lady who found out that she was terminally ill. she wasn't going to live long. And she met with her pastor, and then she was making arrangements. And she told him, this is what I'd like said at my funeral, and these are the songs I'd like played. And he said, that'd be fine. And he would make sure that was taken care of. And she said, one last thing, Pastor. She said, when you put me in the casket, make sure you put a fork in my hand. And he said, excuse me? He said, I don't really understand that. He said, I understand the songs you want to play, the Bible verses you want to read, but I don't understand the whole fork. She said, well, all my life, I've attended social meals at church, potlucks. She said, the ladies from the church were always so kind, and they would come around, and they would get my plate, clear my plate for me, but they'd always tell me, keep your fork, because the best is yet to come. And I knew that meant there was some velvet chocolate cake, or a brownie, or an apple pie coming. There was something good coming my way. So I want, when people come and they view me, you know, as I'm going to my phone, I want them to see that fork in my hand because I want them to ask you. I want them to ask you what that means. And when they do, I want you to tell them that I knew that the best was yet to come. And isn't that true for all of us? No matter what our trials are here, no matter what we go through here, the best is always yet to come, isn't it? We've all been promised a place with God in heaven, right? To spend eternity in the presence of our Creator. The best is definitely yet to come. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be valleys, but there will also be hills. And just like I told you at the beginning, this is an ordinary story about ordinary folks. Everyday folks, just like me and you, who experience life's up and downs. But they stay committed to each other, and it brought them through. And they stay committed to God, who saw them through. And our God is committed to us, to each and every one of us. He's committed to getting us home, spending time with Him. So one day at a time, when the days get tough, when the moments get rough, when the seas are battering your boat, and you're wondering, can I make it through one more minute or one more day? Know that God's working on your behalf to see you through. That He's never deserted you, nor will He ever desert you. That He will always be there for you. That He's as committed to you as Ruth was to Naomi. And I ask that you be committed to Him and know that the best is yet to come. And all God's people said, Amen.